this video, we're going to take the part that we've already created and adjust our geometry and also play around a little bit with cutter compensation left and cutter compensation right, and also turning it fully off to see what happens. So the first thing I want to point out to you, so right now what I have on the screen is the previous video's part with our cut that's made through the center here. These tool paths, so this right now the yellow line and these blue lines indicate the path of the tool path that the tool is taking through the part. I wanted to call your attention to the fact that those can be toggled on and off. So we only have one particular tool path that's on our screen right now and in our toolpath manager, so it really doesn't clutter the screen all that much. But as you add more and more operations, it will clutter the screen. So you can indeed toggle those on and off. Again, it's this little, what I did here was just left click on this little wavy line that's right between the lock icon and the little ghost looking icon here. So a left click on that will toggle those on and off. I'm also going to go back to my top view. So right now I'm in an isometric view. In my view tab, I can go over here to my graphics view group and go to top. And so now I'm just going to take this and put it in the top view. So we can still see that my stock is outlined here, and we still see the part represented as it would be in a drawing. So what I have is my wireframe geometry is this rectangle, and then these two lines that represent the actual cut through the material, so the actual slot that's through the material. The other thing that we could actually do here, though, is we really could, in terms of the Mastercam capability or the CAM package capability, really what all we need is a line, a chain for that tool to follow. So in all reality, we don't need to make the geometry look like this. We could actually just go ahead and delete these out, which I'll just do by left clicking and selecting those lines, and redraw just a single line. So right now, by the way, this is not going to regenerate because now we have nothing for this tool path to follow. So you can see in this geometry here, it says 0 chains. We're going to go ahead and go back to our wireframe, and I'm going to simply put in one single line and see if I can snap to an actual midpoint here of this line, and go all the way over here and snap to the midpoint here as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and select OK. There's my new geometry. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to also show you how to add a chain or change chains. If I go into where it says geometry 0 chains and left click on this, and then if I right click inside of this chain manager, what I'm going to do is just in this case, I'm going to add a chain. And I'm simply going to keep this single chain active, and I'm going to come over here and left click on this, and you can see this is my tool direction. So now the tool is going to be moving from left to right along this chain. So again, it looks nothing like the way an engineering drawing would look, but I can still use this as my chained line. So I'm going to regenerate this. And then I'm also going to go in here and I'm going to actually run this part. So I'm going to run the simulation for this part now and see what actually happens. So I'm going to go to isometric here. So if I go to the view tab in the simulation and then go to isometric, and then I'm going to step through this. And we can see what happens here is I'm doing my depth cuts, but everything is to the right of my line as the tool is heading through the part. The reason that is because if we go back to my cut parameters, you can see that my compensation type is set to computer and my compensation direction is set to right. So if I want that instead to go right along that line, what I can do is actually just turn this compensation type off. And I'll go ahead and do that, and we'll regenerate, and we'll rerun the simulation, and we'll see what actually happens here. So now I've cut with the cutter is now, and let me go back all the way through and I'll just step through. The cutter is actually cutting, as you can see, right at the center line of the cutter. The center line of the cutter is lined up with this line that we've chained. That's because we've taken and turned off that cutter compensation. So it's no longer compensated to the right or to the left. It's turned off. So the cutter radius, or the center of the cutter, is now right along this line. Another way that we can see this, and I'll go back to my top view here, another way that we can see this is if we go into our geometry. If I left click on this and simply open this up, you're going to see that I've got two sets of arrows. So I've got the big arrows that are indicating the actual tool path direction. So again, this is assuming that the tool is moving from left to right on the screen. What these smaller arrows indicate, though, is the direction that the cutter compensation would be compensated in if it were turned on. So in this case, right now, it's not turned on, but we can go in, and actually what I'll do is I'll go in and change the actual parameters here. Let's turn it back on to computer, and we'll go back in and regenerate. And then we'll go in here and we'll check this out again. We can see here that what we have is these are compensated to the right. Okay. We can actually change the cutter compensation, though, from the chain manager. So I'll go ahead and do that. If I right click on it and I go to change side, you can see that these little arrows flip sides. And what that's doing is that's now changing the cutter compensation direction to the left with respect to the way that the tool is actually feeding through the part. So, and when I run this simulation, what's going to happen is you're going to see the tool, the radius is compensated over here, which means that the tool is going to run to the left side of this line, left in terms of the direction in which the tool is heading, or with respect to the way that the tool is heading. So that's a little bit about how we can change the wireframe geometry. How can we make it so that we can use a single line to chain instead of two lines and run the cutter in one direction only, and also how it is that we can change the cutter compensation to do different things with that cutter in that part along those lines. That's all for this video, and so in the next video we'll probably move into pockets.